Okay, so last class kita dah bincang sedikit lah, okay, a bit on introduction on research. Okay, research method, pengenalan kepada research lah. Okay, so because the first chapter in our syllabus also, okay, focuses on what is research, okay, and then breakdown of the research process. Okay, basically, but saya punya approach, okay, so we're gonna go through the chapter 1 and then the breakdown of what should be covered in chapter 1, and then so this is the this is yang saya bagi pada you all lah, okay, untuk bincang, untuk baca. Okay, ada banyak thesis yang kita dalam Google Drive tu. So what you should do is you should download the whole thing, okay, put in your hard disk, okay, rather than having to go back to the link. Okay, so download the whole batch of the file into your laptop, and then easy for discussion lah purposes. So the reason kenapa saya minta you all rename the file so that tak kita tahulah, saya kata rujuk pada artikel 40 ke ataupun 20, okay, tajuk sekian-sekian, so at least kita tahulah dan memudahkan untuk saya jugalah untuk track artikel yang sesuai kita bincangkan dalam. So okay, before we discuss, okay, a bit on the article, okay, which I require the macam biasalah participation from, tapi you all ni duk senyap-senyap macam takut-takut ni, janganlah takut-takut. Okay, saya bukan makan orang pun, nak makan pun tak boleh, duduk jauh. You all dekat rumah saya pun, dekat rumah saya pun bekerja daripada jauh lah, kita bukan mengajar face to face. Kalau face to face pun tak ada lah saya nak pergi terkam you all. Okay, so because I think when I mentioned last week lah, okay, so this is our second week already. Okay, subject like this kita kita tak ada exam. I mean, even though waktu the normal teaching ada exam final, tapi just around 40%, and most of the stuff that you will be tested, kebanyakannya benda-benda yang berkaitan dengan aplikasi lah. So kalau you all dah faham konsep research, benda ni bukan perlu hafal pun kalau waktu exam sebenar. So let alone this time around, this semester, we decide there is no more exam, 100% based on assignment. So the marks that will be awarded tu is akan saya akan reward based on your participation lah. Seorang you all senyap dan membisu dan takut-takut nak bercerita, nak kongsi pandangan, saya pun takut-takut lah nak memberi markah yang banyak. Okay, so itu je lah. Sebab benda ni dia tak boleh, dia bukannya bukannya you all hafal and then berpandukan apa yang kamu tulis saja. Okay, ada komponen-komponen dalam rubrik tu, especially in the benda-benda yang saya akan nilai kemudian. Okay, sebab dan kita pula pagi, the group in the morning, group B ni tak ramai, so lagi senyap you all, lagi mandom lah kuliah ini. Okay, so in the book that will be referring the most lah, basically from Kotari ni. Okay, so last time around, I think I did not discuss kita akan pergi balik lah on the introduction. Okay, so what it means by doing, first how do we define research? Okay, so in general, kalau you all tengok yang saya highlight color kuning dekat sini, okay, so comprise of defining and redefining problems, formulating hypothesis. So in this one sentence here, okay, especially the first part here, defining problems. So when it comes to do research, okay, maybe for this subject, you might think that it is part of your requirement to get a degree, okay, taking research method. Tapi maybe some of you are planning to continue your master's degree maybe one day. Okay, sebab job market pun taklah bagus sangat sekarang ni. Okay, people are banyak yang tak ada kerja, yang kalau kerja pun gaji pun taklah besar mana. So you might be thinking to pursue your master's degree after you finish your degree, so that you have added value lah in terms of your qualification. So if that is part of your plan, okay, and then the whole process of doing research, okay, will be applied again lah. In fact, lebih mendalam lah. Cuma proses dia sama, tak ada beza dengan what you will be doing this semester and also in semester 7 when you take the thesis, okay, the kertas ilmiah subject in semester 7. The only difference between your project in the upcoming semester 7 and also this semester, okay, versus what if you actually pursue your master's degree, okay, and maybe one day you decide to do PhD, is just the depth of the discussion, okay, kedalaman skop perbincangan, okay, and also the kata kaedah lah, the tools that you will be using, okay. For example, if you want to do econometric analysis, okay, of course, doing master's degree and PhD, you cannot use the very simple approach that you learn in your undergraduate. Okay, depending on the issue, on the topic that you want to do. But if you want to do econometric analysis, okay, so of course you need to learn more lah. So I think some of the tools you will learn in your master's degree. Okay, kalau kamu nak gunakan primary data, for example, from questionnaire, okay, the scope of the analysis, the type of the questions that you will ask, the data that you will collect, the nature of data that you will collect must reflect the scope of the analysis. Okay, so but the process remain more or less the same. Okay, kena go through the sequence of doing a research. So the first part is of course knowing what is the problems. Okay, apakah isu yang kamu nak ketengahkan, yang kamu nak bincang. So this is actually the hardest part, because sometimes students find it so difficult to look for the issue. Okay, and one of the problem is lack of reading lah, kurang pembacaan. If you don't read a lot, okay, if you don't expose yourself to academic research, meaning that you don't read a lot from journals, okay, from working papers, kertas kerja, conference papers, and also okay, update in the current issues, because sometimes not all current issues can be translated into research. Okay, sometimes setengah-setengah isu yang berlaku pada current issues, they are not researchable. I mean, you cannot simply take one current issue and end up doing a study on that. Maybe a survey, a simple survey, yes, okay, but to do academic research, you need to know apa yang kamu nak kaji, okay, what are the problems, and if the research that you do will end up having some sort of solution lah, you can suggest or you can find answers to that problem. Okay, so that is the first thing about doing research. And then once you are clear what are the problems that your study is about, and then you want to formulate hypothesis. So of course, at this stage, I would expect everyone knows what is hypothesis, because you learn hypothesis testing in your basic stats, okay, in SEM 1, SEM 2, or in your year 1 lah. Okay, a statement that you want to test whether the statement is true or not. Okay, you make someone makes a claim, or you want to test the hubungan between two variables, if the variable is supposed to be positively related or negatively related. So you want to test that hubungan, that relationship in your study, and maybe you want to prove that the hubungan is significant, okay, it's positive or negative and whatnot. Okay, and then suggesting solution. So this is part of the research, as I mentioned. So not all current issues are researchable, meaning bukan kamu simply ambil satu isu yang menarik and then kamu nak buat satu thesis. Okay, it doesn't work that way all the time lah. Sometimes you can, based on current issue and figure out how to do an academic study on that. Okay, but sometimes it doesn't fit. Dia ada masalah mungkin data, okay, nak dapatkan responden dan sebagainya. Jadi you cannot you need to decide carefully what you want to study lah. Okay, and then solutions kepada isu yang kamu nak bagi itu must be based on the findings of your study lah. Meaning once you put up the hypothesis for you to test, okay, you do the data collection, you run the regression, the analysis, or whatever analysis that you want to do, and the answer to your hypothesis tu you must provide at least some suggestions, okay, to solve the problem or to minimize the problem or to overcome the problem. Okay, you don't expect your research actually to solve the world punya problem lah. Kalau masalah tu dah berlaku berpuluh-puluh tahun, bertahun-tahun, okay, you cannot expect your own study to solve apa yang mungkin other researchers cannot do. Maybe what you can do is providing some solutions, okay, maybe benda tu solution that are doable lah, maybe not currently but maybe in the future. Okay, so that is about solution. And then it, of course, the whole thing involve collecting data. Okay, collecting, if you are using primary data analysis from questionnaire, so you need to collect data, organize, evaluate, okay, and then finally making deduction. So this is using your understanding on the issue lah. Okay, you simplify in that, kalau if you're doing a master thesis, usually I mean, you can refer to the articles, the thesis in the Google Drive. So usually it's around 60, 70, 80 pages punya length lah. So I think it's around 20. I can't remember what is the word limit for master's degree. But of course for PhD, it can go up to 180 pages, 170 pages. But of course lah, yang tebal-tebal tu sometimes also part of the writing tu is the tables, okay, results of your table. So that makes the thesis nampak banyak lah. But in terms of writing, maybe around 100 pages long for a PhD thesis. But then making deduction is based on, after all the data collection, you run the data. So what is the conclusion that you want to establish based on the hypothesis that you initially set up to do lah, or to test. Okay, and then of course the conclusion lah, bab kelima. Okay, so sometimes I think even in my own case lah, okay, as a lecturer who examines students, master students, PhD students, or even undergraduate students, okay, sometimes the easy way to see whether you have answered your objective or not, okay, tengok pada chapter 1 what you want to test in your research question tu, okay, because by this time, okay, if you go through the paper which I shared, which is I think more or less similar to many of the thesis in the Google Drive tu, okay, you have your research question. What are the questions that you want to answer? Okay, so 1.3 and 1.4 ni more or less the same lah. Question dalam bentuk tanda soal, objective is based on the question. Okay, so it must be consistent lah. So what you set out to test, okay, kamu nak kaji dalam your kajian tu, in your research, okay, must be answered, and then you must provide the conclusion. Sama ada what you want to test, okay, is already you find some solutions to it in the conclusion. Okay, so ini yang sometimes pelajar fail to actually answer. Okay, they run regressions, they have many tables, they have data collected from questionnaire, okay, but the answer that they provide towards the end of the thesis, especially in the conclusion, does not reflect what they set out to do in 1.3, 1.4. Okay, because sometimes masa buat chapter 1 tu, they have something, ada benda dalam kepala lah, nak buat tu, nak buat ni, nak kaji A, nak kaji B, nak kaji C. Sometimes what they want to kaji, what you want to analyze is based on what you plan to do. But then after you go through all the process, you collect data, you run the data, okay, sometimes the findings that you get does not tally or does not actually answer. Kamu dah terlupa apa yang kamu nak tanya. Even though you can always go back to 1.3, 1.4, what you wrote earlier, okay, because sometimes in chapter 1, you might do it, let's say in January. By the time you finish your analysis, maybe in the month of May, okay, 4 bulan, itu kalau master's degree lah. Kalau PhD mungkin lebih lama lah, ataupun master's degree maybe around 1.5 years. But if you imagine you are doing a PhD degree, 3-4 years or maybe even 5 years, what you initially plan to do in your introduction chapter, when you wrote chapter 1, it might be in your year 1. But finally, when you actually finish your research, it might be after 4 to 5 years. So what you actually plan earlier might not actually consistent. So itu isu-isu yang sering kali akan diuji ataupun will be tested lah, whether you have answered or not. But of course, as an undergraduate student, okay, the scope of your discussion is very small lah, maknanya kecil, dan mudah untuk, okay, and then because you are doing this in a matter of 1 or 2 months, okay, so the scope of the study is small, so you can always cross check whether what you want to do in your own research project this semester always tally, okay, akan menjawab balik apa yang the one that you set out to do in chapter 1. Okay, so in this one paragraph here, okay, there's a lot of process going on lah. Okay, so what so we are in week number 2 already, and we have the group members already set up. Okay, so what I will do is I will provide a Google Doc, a live Google Doc link in our group WhatsApp. Okay, so each group may need to suggest 1 to 3 topics, okay, in your research. Okay, 1 hingga 3 tajuk. Okay, don't only provide one lah, and then because I will see which one yang lebih viable, yang mudah untuk you all nak buat. Sometimes you suggest only one, but then you give me no choice to actually choose the one yang maybe easier to implement or possible to be done within this short time period. So suggest 2 to 3 topics, okay, in the live Google Doc nanti. Okay, I will provide the link maybe later today. Okay, and then of course the topic will be based on primary data analysis. Primary data means it must be based on questionnaire basis. So you can go through the list of the thesis, okay, in the Google Drive, or you can find other thesis elsewhere from the Google. Okay, so you can do a simple search. So I will share also some of the projects from your seniors lah, yang dah ambil maybe a couple of years back, and then see how they do it. Okay, but I will prefer that for simplicity, okay, cari topik yang orang dah buat. Okay, jangan start topik from zero. Meaning that if you want to start a topic from zero, meaning that you need to start constructing the questionnaire from zero. So it will take a lot of your time and also my time, because I need to go through the questionnaire, construct, nak kena check betul tak you punya questionnaire, what you want to ask in the questionnaire, does it, will it answer your objective of your study. Jadi itu yang susah sikit lah bila masing-masing jangan tengok langit and then ambil inspirasi, and then you end up doing something which is orang tak pernah buat langsung, and then that's why I give you a lot of materials to begin with in your Google Drive. Okay, and also I will share later some of the topics that your seniors have done. I mean, at least my own students lah. Okay, kalau kamu ada senior yang boleh kamu contact, okay, diorang pernah buat certain topik. Okay, because I don't mind you replicate, bukannya tiru, maknanya replicate, meaning you do similar approach, similar topic, but then the purpose of this subject, okay, bukan nak test kemampuan kamu cari topik yang canggih-canggih and then buat soalan daripada kosong. Because to do a questionnaire will take months actually if you are doing an actual, I mean, bukanlah bertahun-tahun tapi maybe berbulan, because you need to construct the questionnaire, test the questionnaire first, and then refine the questionnaire, tengok balik, benda ni makan masa. And then because you are working in group and you are not face to face, so semua nak berbincang melalui WhatsApp, all this thing, Webex. So it will take much longer rather than if you were to be in a face to face environment. So tu yang menyusahkan kalau you all tak ada bahan yang untuk kamu nak bermula. So you can go through some of the, kalau ada dalam thesis tu ada questionnaire. So and if you find that topic boleh kamu nak buat, then continue lah. Then you can suggest that topic in dalam cadangan topik yang kamu nak buat. Okay, or you can find other sumber, maknanya from the internet. There's a lot of materials out there. Okay, you just need to know how to do the simple Google search, and then try to find kalau ada questionnaire yang dah ready made, then kamu boleh gunakanlah tajuk-tajuk tu as your project paper, okay, for your group and also for your proposal, okay. So this is about the apa tu, what research is, basically definition of a research, okay. So of course, when you go through this process of writing a research project, okay, I'm sure by now, especially for semester 5 students, okay, you have done many assignments, okay, yang memerlukan for you to explain, and then also maybe you need to provide some references, mana sumber kamu dapat. Okay, and then I'm sure you have done this many times, okay, from semester 1 until semester 4. Okay, especially in the last 1 year or so, many of your subject no more exam, so your lecturers have replaced with assignments. So writing assignments is not something new to you lah, okay, but what is the difference between your typical assignments for your subject with a research project? Okay, so the main difference is of course lah the structure of a research paper, whereby you need to go through the sequence of the standard 5 chapters. Of course, if you go through some of the thesis, past thesis in the library, okay, the one that I shared, some students break chapter 1 into 2 parts. Okay, introduction, the chapter 1 may have chapter 1 and chapter 2, basically around introduction. So this sometimes happen if the student feel that the introduction needs to be a bit longer. They want to provide more background of the topic. Okay, for example, about COVID-19, for example. So maybe chapter 1 just about the COVID, the background of a bit of the COVID-19, and then chapter 2 also dia macam break a sub topic of the introduction. The student want to have a more discussion about the COVID cases dalam di setiap negara di dunia, the main countries in the world, okay, macam mana boleh the COVID cases can spread so fast and blah 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 lah, okay, because the student find that putting all those material in chapter 1 might be a bit too long. So chapter 2, the breakdown of the chapter 1 into 2 chapters sometimes can serve as the additional material, okay, to provide more discussion for the background of the study. Okay, but in most cases, okay, you will end up only having 5 chapters lah. Okay, so this is the difference, I think. Maybe some of your assignment, your lecturer require you to have some sort of macam sequence macam ni juga. Tapi I'm sure tak adalah detail macam ni, okay, because this is part of the requirement kalau in your project paper lah. Okay, so that is basically what research is about. Okay, you need to find what is the problem, apa isu dia, okay, yang kamu nak kaji, and then you have some idea how you want to do it. Okay, but because the purpose of the subject, again, we're going to rely on primary data collection, meaning using questionnaire, and also simple analysis that you have learned before, ANOVA, hypothesis testing, simple correlation test, and whatnot. Okay, so you have some idea how you want to do it, how you want to evaluate your data. Okay, so the issue now is finding the problems lah, finding the issue that you want to do for your semester, for this semester. Okay, so then before saya ni lah pergi kepada discussion on the assignment, on the thesis. This thesis is very short actually. And the topic actually on FDI ni saya bukalah. I mean, I chose this thesis not because it's the best one in the library, but because of because the issue of FDI, I think many people can relate. Many economic students can relate about the foreign direct investment. So, and it's quite short actually, the introduction. But just for a start for this week, we start with a short paper first, and maybe in the upcoming weeks, okay, I may use more of PhD punya thesis, because there's a lot more writing in that thesis, and then maybe we can explore more how the student actually breaks down the analysis, okay, into to answer the objective. Okay, it's not about understanding the thesis punya issue, okay, but more on trying to understand how the structure of a research punya format lah. Okay, so and then okay, so objective of research. So once you have some idea what you want to do, okay, so the purpose of research is to discover answer to the questions through application of scientific procedure. So the word scientific procedure ni, so this is the difference between doing a simple article or a newspaper article ataupun a simple survey that you do in a simple survey from orang tanya yes or no question, what is your opinion? That one is not scientific. Okay, scientific means you need to go through a sequence of process. So that so the sequence of process itulah that make it scientific. Scientific means whatever that you plan to test your hypothesis, it must be, kalau orang lain pun nak buat benda yang ada people, ada researchers want to do, they can follow your procedure. Okay, it's like going to the makmal, okay, going to the lab. Okay, you have a set of procedures that you need to follow, step 1 until the final step, and that's whatever that you set out to test, benda tu must follow a sequence of process so that your findings will be credible lah, orang akan percaya, because dia bukannya, it's not something that you do simply you don't follow the process, then I mean people will not be able to trust whether what you have done is it valid or not. So for your findings to be valid, okay, ada unsur kepercayaan, orang boleh percaya pada your findings. Your findings can be used to to justify solutions that you propose. Benda tu must go through the process or scientific process. Okay, and then from the data collections, you already go through the questionnaire punya testing process. You have a small pilot study. Okay, you ask a small group of your respondent and see whether the questionnaire can be understood or not. Okay, and those are the process when you want to do research, especially if you are doing primary data. Okay, so the word scientific procedure is here refers to the standard process lah kalau kamu nak buat kajian, especially in term of the data collection, processing the data. Okay, what method that you choose to analyze the data, siapa yang propose that method. So most of the time we don't create our own method, we just apply what has been used by many researchers before. So tak ada issue kepada whether your method is kamu cipta sendiri ke, tapi if you are in the science stream, you are in the programming data scientist, you want to come up with your own program or software, that is another thing lah. Okay, but in our field, in the social science punya field, usually the methods that we apply are the established method, kaedah yang orang dah biasa pakai. Okay, and then you just apply what has been applied by other researchers, so that there is no nak mengurangkan isu, why you are using this method, or your method is not valid, is wrong, and whatnot lah. Okay, so objective of the research here, okay, if you look at this thesis here, okay, objective will be 1.4, okay, which is the after you have actually clarified what is the problem of your study. So once you have actually identified what you want to study, then you need to be clear what is the objective. Okay, sometimes you have some idea about the problem. For example, if you talk about unemployment among graduates, means pengangguran di kalangan siswaza, which is topic that has been studied many years, and maybe now it becomes more relevant, especially during this COVID-19 musim lah. Okay, because job market ialah pasaran buruh tak berapa cemerlang sekarang ni. Banyak company need to close, okay, because of the economic problems. So many people are without jobs, okay, and then kalau yang nak bekerja pun, so because supply more than demand, the basic concept supply versus demand, if more supply than demand, then the price will go down. Okay, so this is what you learn in your principle of economics or your microeconomy. So maybe some graduates prefer not to work lah at the lower salary, so they end up being unemployed. Or if they want to work, they need to be paid accept a much lower pay lah. Okay, which is so if you have some idea, for example, you want to study on unemployment among graduates, so that is just the problem, masalahnya. So what is the objective of your study? Okay, apa yang kamu nak tengok sebenarnya isu, adakah you want to study from the perspective of the government policy, yang mungkin you want to think that okay, tidak gagal untuk menyerap masuk pekerja-pekerja di kalangan graduates, okay, or you want to investigate from the graduate perspective, why they become unemployed. Is it because the lack of social skill or any other skill, soft skill, for example, skill, during interview, skill, computer skill, or any other, or lack of extracurricular activities. So those kind of issue maybe from the perspective of the graduates themselves. Or you want to study from the perspective of the majikan, why majikan refuse to, or tak mengambil graduan bekerja. Okay, so maybe you want to study from the perspective of, meaning that your sample might come from the majikan, from the companies. Okay, so it depends on what is the objective of your study. If your objective is more on trying to help the government to come up with a good policy to polisi kerajaan yang berkaitan dengan mungkin cara nak meningkatkan kemahiran ataupun kebolehpasaran, okay, the employability of the graduates, then you might want to focus something on that. So there are many areas that you can study on one issue. So you need to know what is the objective of the research. Okay? But of course, if you look at this paper here, because the topic is very simple and straightforward, it has been studied many times. Okay, sometimes I even wonder how the student actually, because this tajuk I think was done in 2018, quite recent lah, 3 years ago. Okay, if I were the supervisor, okay, I wouldn't have approved this. I mean, this is just personal opinion. Okay, I do not know what is the problem or what is the issue or why the supervisor approved this title in the first place, because this student is not even from economy. This is from finance punya, from SAB, but from the finance punya department. Okay, and this topic is more towards the economic student lah. Okay, maybe from the finance perspective, this topic is something not very common among finance students. So maybe that is one of the reason why the supervisor, Dr. Nohafizah, allow this topic to be investigated, because the topic of FDI in Malaysia has been, there's a lot of studies done already in this particular subject. So, for me, jawapan tu memang dah ada banyak dah jawapan. The answers are there already in the literature, in dalam bentuk journal, thesis. So most of the thing that the student want to answer in this thesis, the answers are already established or already answered in many previous studies done in Malaysia. Okay, so there's nothing new actually, but again, I do not know. Maybe the student has some problems, during the study, and the supervisor wants to help, the student by doing something quite simple. So there are many reasons lah. So, or maybe as I mentioned, this is a finance student in background. So doing something non-finance might be something a bit unique to the student. So that could be one of the reasons. Okay, but putting that aside, the issue on FDI is a very simple, straightforward, because the issue is the impact of macroeconomic variables. Okay, pembeli ubah variables macroeconomic macam GDP, exchange rate, inflation. Okay, the impact of those variables on the FDI flow to Malaysia. So basically, it's a regression analysis lah. I'm sure if you look at the table of contents, okay, you know that this data, got to do with some of the, some analysis from prime. Of course, this will be using secondary data on FDI and some of the data lah. Okay, so and then if you look at the introduction, it's very, very short. In fact, if you look at the number of pages, you can see already the amount of discussion by looking at the number of pages allocated for introduction and background of the study. It's just even in 1.0 and 1.1 is a matter of 1 page only. So I think it's a bit too short lah. Okay, usually the introduction at least around 3 to 5 pages. Okay, and then problem statement could be around one page. Okay, but I think this is the other way around. Problem statement becomes longer, intro become a bit too short. Okay, so of course, as I mentioned, this is not the best thesis out there, but it's just I want to highlight the focus of the study, okay, which is on FDI. Okay, so before I open to the groups, okay, for the discussion. Okay, again, I would like to remind, okay, bila saya panggil nama at random ke mana-mana ahli, saya akan jot down lah the names. Okay, so that, but do not feel comfortable if you already been asked this today, then saya tak akan tanya lagi ke apa ke benda tu. Yelah, walaupun saya akan jot down, tapi yelah, I will give equal opportunities. You can volunteer if you want to, if the question, you find it easy for you to answer, or you can wait for me to call and then get ready to switch on your camera lah, because saya nak tengok muka you all masa menjawab tu. Okay, simple as that. Okay, and then, yeah, okay, I'll just go through a bit here before we do a bit of discussion. So, objective of the research, okay, to gain familiarity with the phenomenon, or to achieve new insight. Okay, sometimes kita buat kajian ni because kita nak tengok from different angle. Okay, for example, even topic like FDI. Okay, dah banyak kali orang buat, being research many times. But maybe you want to propose, you want to look from a slightly different angle. Maybe because of COVID-19, for example, companies, cannot invest as much as they do previously. So maybe you want to see the impact of COVID-19 on FDI. So the topic is still on FDI, but because the scenario has changed, so maybe it's something that can be done as well. Okay, and then to portray accurately the characteristics. So yang ni mostly on the primary data lah, kalau kamu nak kaji individu ataupun kumpulan. Okay, so this could be more of a descriptive. Okay, descriptive means banyak memerlukan macam apa, it doesn't really involve any regression ke analysis. Okay, you just going to describe. Okay, you got your data and then you're going to describe the characteristics, profile lah, background, umur, jantina, income level. Okay, meaning that you want to have more understanding on your sample, okay, on your respondent. Okay, and then the first one is formulative or exploratory. So sometimes this you want to, exploratory means kamu nak, you want to explore lah, nak dapatkan lebih banyak jawapan. So sometimes 1 and 3 ni dia boleh cross lah, okay. To determine, 1 and 4 actually. Number 3 ni to determine the frequency in which something occurs with which is associated with something else. So diagnostic research ni saya tak berapa sure lah bagaimana, sebab yang ni a common punya guideline. Okay, kita in our area social science, okay, I think the more yang lebih kita relevant is number 4 here. Okay, because ada banyak area dalam study, okay, dalam bidang scientific, dalam bidang law, for example, bidang social study, social work, okay, bidang teaching. So my expertise is dealing with more on the economic punya issues lah. So I think ours more relevant on number 4. Okay, whether you are using primary data or secondary data, nak tengok hubungan antara variables lah. Okay, for example, you want to run a regression, okay, simple regression, the OLS, the ordinary least square, or any other methods that you know. Okay, you want to, for example, like this student also, okay, the student okay, look at the relationship between macroeconomic variables and also the FDI. So basically that study fall under category number 4 lah. Okay, hypothesis testing research study. So many of our studies in the economics department, okay, and agribusiness got to do with number 4. Okay, and also number 2, especially if you are doing primary data. Okay, the first part of your discussion, you want to explain more. For example, you're doing on the unemployment among graduates. So maybe the first part of your discussion will be about the sample, the information about your sample. Let's say you interview or you collect data from 300 respondents, 300 unemployed graduates. So you want to break down the characteristics, okay, their age, degree, diorang dulu degree apa, from which university, from which states, okay, dia punya, ialah benda-benda yang the characteristics of your respondents, okay, of your samples. So you want to have more understanding. Most of the sample come from which part of the country, okay, or diorang banyakkannya bidang apa, degree apa, okay, jantina apa, okay, and whatnot lah. So these are the characteristics that will be included part of this in number 4, okay. So and then number 4 yang before I stop here, okay, I want to stop at this motivation in research. So at least for this particular semester, I mean, of course, why you want to do research is because it's part of the requirement lah for you to pass the subject. Okay, you are doing research because it's the requirement lah for you to get that 100% portions, whether it's individual assignment or your group assignment. Okay, so desire to get a research degree. So you need to pass the subject for you to be awarded a degree in Bachelor of Science Economics or in agribusiness. Okay, and then but if you want to pursue master's degree or even a PhD, for example, especially if you're doing masters, even though it's part of the requirement to get a degree, okay, but the topic that you want to actually study in your master's degree or even PhD or even in your semester 7, okay, part of your thesis project, okay. So the topic that you want to do, sometimes the lecturer will decide what you need to do. So in that case, maybe you have not much kata freedom lah to choose. Sometimes, for example, my own student this particular semester, okay, I asked them to do, the 5 of them to do one standard topic, okay, but then the data must be unique to the student. Maknanya data berbeza lah, but the issue will be more or less the same. Okay, so it's just to help me to actually to supervise them, because supervision during COVID-19 from online is a bit challenging compared to kalau meet face to face. So okay, to facilitate supervision, so that's why I asked them to do one same tajuk. Okay, but so that is, but what topic that, for example, if you want to come up with your own tajuk, okay, with your own issue, so maybe you have some, especially in the master's or PhD degree, okay, especially if you're already working and your topic might be related to your work, okay, or you want to contribute to the society, blah 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 lah. Okay, but I think this, when the time comes, maybe when you want to do your master's degree or PhD degree one day, okay, then certain topic you must love that particular issue lah, not because your supervisor asks you to do, okay, because you want to do it, you want to spend the next 3-4 years studying that topic. So if you don't have any deep interest in that particular issue, so you might end up getting boring lah or bosan. Okay, and when you lose your focus, then that's why some student they decide not to continue their study lah. Okay, so I'll stop here on the motivation in research. Okay, so I hope our discussion on why you want to do, I mean, what is research, okay, and then what is research, and then kenapa kita perlu buat research. Okay, so basically itulah yang kita nak cuba bincang hari ni. Okay, and then the first part of doing a research, okay, before, okay, So yang ni penerangan tentang descriptive analysis ni kita akan pergi maybe next Thursday, okay? Because as I mentioned, I do not want to do all the talking and then and then tiba-tiba satu hari semua bercakap pula kan. Jadi kita akan go back and forth lah. Saya akan pergi pada conceptual and then we go back to the discussion in class and then I will go back to the notes from the book. Okay, mana yang saya rasa relevan untuk discuss. Not all the things from the book kita akan cover lah. Okay, for example here, what is research problem? So chapter number 2 here, I think I will spend maybe 1 week lah. I think at least 1 week to discuss this because this is the most important part in your research before you can actually do the data collection and whatnot. Okay, so sekejap. Mana paper ni? Okay, so permission to use pula. Okay, so the title of the thesis, okay, the impact of macroeconomic factors on foreign direct investment (FDI) in Malaysia. So, and the intro and the it's very, kalau nak tengok memang tak banyak pun lah boleh kita bincang, but I just want to hear you all cakap je lah. Okay, so chapter 1, I think this is a very, very short punya. I think it's a bit too short in fact, okay, on the background. Bukan 1.0 ni, 1.1, background of study. So I expect actually more, some tables, some graphs, okay, on the FDI flow in Malaysia. But, okay, so siapa yang nasib baik pagi ni? Okay, Jivesri. Jivesri kumpulan apa? Jivesri kumpulan. Jivesri, mana Jivesri?
Yes, sir.
Kumpulan 2 kan? Fabian, Faizah. Okay. Buka lah kamera. Saya panggil nama tu tolong buka kamera. Come on, come on. Ha. Okey, apa share your screen. Screen on the article tu, on the FDI tu.
I'm seeing from my phone, sir.
Pakai tablet. Oh, tak pakai laptop
Tak buka dalam laptop.
Oh, okey. Buat je lah, tak apa. Okay, so ceritalah so what do you understand about the ni lah, the student punya introduction tu. Apa yang dia nak ceritakan?
Introduction.
Yeah, I mean what is the thesis basically about lah from chapter 1 tu. From chapter 1 tu, yang pendek tu, 1.1, 1.0. Kita tak bincang lagi problem statement, just on the overall idea what is the thesis about lah.
It is about the impact of
Cakap kuat sikit apa tu GBS ni, saya tak dengar. I mean tu perlahan.
It is about the impact of macroeconomic factors on foreign direct investments in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And the objective of this paper is to study the impact of macroeconomic factors.
So what are the macroeconomic factors yang from the study tu? Of course this is discussed later, but but if you glance through the thesis tu kan, so bila dia sebut macroeconomic factors, so what are the factors yang the variables that the student actually want to look at tu? Tak baca pun lagi?
Macam the the relationship between the technology semua.
Itulah apa yang dalam thesis itulah, apa what are the variables yang dia nak tengok tu. That one I think you can find in the ni lah, dalam dia punya apa objektif tu, in the same chapter, in the same chapter 1. Okay, you can find some of the important I mean the key variables lah that the student want to okay, as I mentioned, this is not actually a good thesis to refer to in the sense of constructing your introduction. Okay, it's a bit too simplistic. Okay, tak banyak pun perbincangan. In fact, problem statement is longer than introduction. It should be the other way around lah. Okay, so the variables that refer to the macroeconomic tu are this one lah: technology, domestic employment, economic growth, which is GDP. Okay, new market size. Okay, so they are indicators lah or data lah that will variables that will be used to measure what is market size, what is international competition, what is economic growth, domestic employment. So this is in terms of the term, okay. But how the student measure or apa variable yang digunakan untuk mengukur teknologi, domestic employment and the rest, that one you need to go to chapter 1 or chapter 3. Usually in chapter 3 lah, okay, the student will define what are the sources of data, okay, how the variables will be measured, or what is the proxy, okay, pembeli ubah yang diguna pakai untuk mengukur benda-benda yang di situ lah. Okay, so itulah. Okay. So kalau boleh kena standby guna laptop lah, sebab saya nak mungkin suruh you all share screen. Tapi kalau you all masuk pakai handphone, macam mana saya nak suruh share? Susah sikit lah. Tapi kalau, yelah, itu masalahnya bila you all gunakan handphone untuk berbincang. Okay, because sometimes I need to see, I just want you to share your own screen lah. Memang tak boleh guna laptop
Tak boleh guna, tapi saya guna phone.
Okay, so next time around gunakan laptop lah untuk ni, sebab I want you to share your screen on the laptop tu. Okay, so that at least I know that you are on the same page as me. Okay, tidak kalau saya juga yang nak kena share screen, susah jugalah. Okay, thank you, Beer3043. Okay, one more question lah. Saya actually this morning I need to end a bit quick on our lecture because I need to have something that I need to settle pagi ni. Okay, so my second question on the paper tu, okay, of course again lah, tak banyak benda lah saya nak tanya sebab saya saja pilih topik yang senang, nak bagi you all, tak nak bagi you all terkejut lah, takkan nak terus bagi tajuk yang panjang-panjang kan. Okay, tadi. Okay, second person tadi Beer3043, kumpulan mana tadi? Kumpulan 2 kan. Okay, I want, okay, Tan, group 4 Tan, group 4, Tan sini.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so what do you understand, what do you get from the 1.0, 1.1 on some of the very simple statistics on the FDI though? I mean, yelah, it's a bit short lah, tapi we make do with what we have lah. Data on the data yang dalam yang pelajar ni kongsi ni on the background tu. So the student mentioned some simple statistics on Malaysian FDI. So what do you get that the student trying to actually say in the 1.1 tu? Tak dengar.
I have to share screen kan?
Yeah, I mean you can, I mean by all means, okay. Share your, I mean one thing that, okay, tak apa, share your screen first.
Okay. Yang 1.1.
Yeah, I mean 1.1 because 1.0 is nothing lah. No, I mean when the student wrote 1.1 as the background, so what is the idea that the student actually want to tell to the reader, to the examiner? Apa background to, I mean, what is the background is supposed to serve as background lah, latar belakang kajian. So the student give some simple statistics on FDI in Malaysia, a very simple one. Tapi overall, what do you think the student want to actually convey? Apa isu yang nak diketengahkan oleh pelajar ni?
Saya rasa dia nak cakap FDI yang important dalam economic growth kan. Saya rasa lah. Yang dalam tu 2014 dia cakap tu FDI increase by 2.5 billion to 10.2 billion from the 2014 the third quarter.
Okay. Lagi? Apa lagi? Tak banyak lah dalam dua, I think, yelah, only 2 paragraph saja kan in this. So, okay, the second paragraph tu, the first impact is realized and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what else? On the second paragraph tu, apa yang the student trying to mention?
Dia nak cakap tu FDI yang bagi tu positive impact to foreign firms with opportunities to the domestic firms lah. By introducing the technology and machine and can creating the new demands in the local market or local inputs.
Okay, so basically, if you look at the title, it's about macroeconomic factors. Okay, and then if you look at the research question and the research objective, the student mentioned, I mean, want to test like I think 4-5 variables lah. So I think chapter number 2, perenggan kedua ni is supposed to highlight basically the several variables yang that the student want to actually focus. Okay, but I think the problem with this part is a bit too short. Okay, because the student want to focus on technology, the market, the competition, you know, and so these are the things, but you know, for some reason is lumped together into one simple, one short paragraph. Okay, whereby the discussion should have been much longer lah. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is not a good thesis actually to I mean, even though the student end up getting her master's degree, okay, but that does not mean, you know, every master's thesis that you find in the library are the good one for you to refer to. Okay, so I mean, I do not know what is the issue with. Sometimes the lecturer try to help the student, even undergraduate. Sometimes kita ada student yang ada masalah tertentu lah yang kita cuba bantu nak menyiapkan projek. So maybe I'm not sure what is the background of the student, but it's a bit too simplistic lah. So if I were the supervisor or if I am writing a project like this, you know, if you want to analyze the 4-5 variable yang affect FDI, okay, you should provide some data set, you know, that can show some linkages, simple line graph or bar graph that shows, you know, pergerakan FDI and also how these variables yang dia nak guna pakai untuk mengkaji itu bergerak bersama-sama dengan, you know, the FDI punya movement. So at least we can see, you know, when this variable goes up, FDI also goes up on the same year, for example. Okay, that should have been what background of the study should have been about. Okay, so I mean, we will go through many other examples lah, yang a better one. Okay, but this is because I just chose this one as a beginning of our discussion. Okay, because there are not many of students lah. I mean, of us in the morning session. Pukul 8.30 ni, pukul 10 nanti, pukul 11.30 nanti I have problem lah because I have many students, but you know, a very short paper to actually discuss. But you get the idea lah, okay? And I see that okay, you are also using Foxit Reader lah. So I'm using Foxit Reader as well. So I can't remember whether I mentioned this So Foxy Reader allows you to actually do some scribbling or highlighting the thesis. Okay, some of the thesis you can highlight, you can use the highlighting punya tool. So okay, you can see, I mean, on my screen, I mean, it's the same thing lah, okay. If you're using Foxy Reader, for example, okay, for even in your own ebook here, in the from Kotari, you can use this highlighting, or you can type. So at least the highlight tool will serve to actually help you to determine, okay, the points that you want to refer to. But of course, you need to open in your ni lah, Foxy Reader lah. So for the rest of the student, kalau tak ada lagi Foxy Reader ni, download lah and use it. Okay, so at least when you share your screen, okay, when you share your screen, at least I know that, okay, you already made some, orang kata, yelah, some notes lah, ataupun there are parts from the thesis that you already read and highlighted, okay, to facilitate our discussion lah. Okay, depending on the scope of our discussion on that day. So use Foxy Reader to actually use the highlighting. But some thesis you cannot do the highlighting because they are in term of image. So image you cannot highlight, but in term of text, some of the thesis converted from Word to PDF, you can use lah the highlighting tool. Okay, depending lah on what material that you have. Okay, but for the at least for the ebook, the Kotari and Jonker punya book yang kita pakai ni, you can do some scribbling lah, okay, highlighting using the Foxy Reader. Okay, thank you Tan. So for the rest, okay, we'll continue next next Thursday. Okay, so I may give you another thesis, okay, to read. Okay, we still on the introduction part. Okay, so and continue reading on our paper. So maybe next Thursday kita akan bincang on the research question and also research objective. Okay, so I may use another thesis but of course when you want to go through the research question objective, you must go through the introduction first for you to understand. I mean, you must go through the problem statement, because before we go for the objective and research question, the part that you need to understand is the research, is the problem statement. Okay, so maybe next Thursday kita akan still lagi bincang introduction on the background of the study and see how a good student will actually elaborate the issue better. Okay, having a more discussion on the background. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I'll see you on next Thursday. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum and good